Harry Talbot was one of the founders of Mesa Land Trust, and we take great pride in the fact that, as far as we know, we are the first land trust in the country that was founded by agricultural producers with the goal of conserving agricultural land.
In 1980, we were already well established in the fruit business, but there was a boom in here, a shale boom.
We were kind of an industry that was occupying the ground until they got around to us.
So they basically told us to get out of the way. They were going to buy all the land up and build houses and factories and stuff all over this land, and we told him where to go, and it wasn't to paradise.
You know, we were strong advocates. We wanted to see the peach orchard saved, and at that time we were kind of pariahs in the local community. Dad and Mom said, you know, we really want to protect some of this ground. We really don't want it absorbed into development.
And of course the wine grape guys came along, and they found out that you could grow pretty good quality wine grapes here, and so eventually our family diversified into wine grapes.
Well, I think Harry's work that he's done through his 25+ years on the Mesa Land Trust Board, and through his work with his family creating the largest fruit packing company in Colorado, he's really blazed some trails.
The Colorado peach industry ships between 20 and 25 million pounds of peaches each year. Most of it goes out on trucks and is eaten fresh with a 24 to 48 hours between tree and table.
The label we have is Talbot's Mountain Gold, and I'm very careful to see, you know, every box that goes out. I want to make sure that it's something that when it's seen in the market, that we're proud of what the consumer gets. And if there's anything less, then I think we wouldn't really even be here.
This is prime and unique farmland, and there's only so much of it. There's probably 10,000 acres in this area where you can literally grow peaches.
The challenge is we have to irrigate everything, and if we don't irrigate, we can't grow anything. And the difference between the watered side of the canal, and on the watered side we have trees and vineyards, on the other side we have desert.
So Harry, this was the first easement that you did in
Yes.
1982?
Yeah, that's probably correct, and it's one of the first ones, the first three that the Conservancy did.
He did recognize that this irrigated cropland in the microclimate that we have here in this valley is irreplicable, and if we lose it, it will be lost forever.
In 2009, the Land Trust launched the Fruitlands Forever initiative with the goal of conserving a critical mass of farmland to sustain the fruit and wine grape growing industry into the indefinite future.
Land conservation is good business whenever you're in a business that takes long-range decisions. Once we get the conservation easements on the land, we stabilize our business. And Palisade's a lot healthier. The merchants down here can tell you that they do a lot better on years that we have a good peach crop.
There's great power in bringing folks together around the vision of preserving this for the future.
My wife and I had a vision, and we were very consistent on that vision. We stuck together. We were always, none of us gave up. Victory is not certain, you know. You just have to believe that you're going to win.
Harry and his family and their peer growers in the area have demonstrated it's an economically viable industry that has a bright future, and the community has really rallied around that, and they see this as something worth preserving.
The Arkansas Valley Flow Management Program had its beginnings in about 1981-82, when the upper portion of the Arkansas Basin was trying to figure out how they could maintain river flows high enough to make sure that recreation and floating on the river was enjoyable. In the summertime, near the end of July and August, native flow drops down low enough that you don't have enough water in the river to float.
We realized early that augmentation was going to be necessary to maintain a viable whitewater rafting industry. The Arkansas River Outfitters Association got involved right away.
The Arkansas River is the lifeblood of this valley here. We find that our busiest time of year here on the river is in that July 1st to August 15th time frame. That's when many tourists are taking their vacations, taking their families out here to Colorado, and it's when they want to go whitewater rafting. We're able to show the visitors, our guests, an excellent experience with the augmented flows. It's the whitewater experience that they're looking for.
So the headwaters of the Arkansas River is up above Leadville. The Arkansas Headwaters Recreation Area is 152 miles long. So we start just below the town of Leadville and we go all the way to Lake Pueblo State Park. Twin lakes and turquoise lakes feed into the Arkansas River. And so the Voluntary Flow Management Program stores water in twin lakes. In most of the year, we try to keep the flows low, which is beneficial for the fish. The fishery on the Arkansas River is one of the most outstanding fisheries in the state of Colorado.
Rainbows here in the Arkansas are beautiful.
And then in the summer, in terms of the whitewater boating, that's when we release a flow of 700 CFS from July 1 through August 15th, which obviously is very beneficial to the whitewater industry, both rafting and kayaking.
Get 'em!
The economic impact of the flow management program is amazing. Everybody thinks about the rafters and everybody thinks about the fishermen. I go broader than that and I go to communities, I go to towns, I go to regions.
They need somewhere to go and eat, they need a place to stay at night, and other recreational opportunities.
I would say the one thing that makes the voluntary flow management program so unique is that it's cooperative in nature. It's not legislation, it's not law, and yet you have all these different entities, starting with Trout Unlimited, the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservation District, Colorado Parks and Wildlife,
Pueblo Board of Waterworks, and the Arkansas River Outfitters Association. We also work very closely with the Bureau of Reclamation, as they are the ones that actually control the flow for us.
It takes a lot of collaboration, it takes a lot of work to be able to ensure that everybody is satisfied.
Without the voluntary flow program, I think you would have a diminished river that flows through the city of Pueblo, and that would be a travesty for the history of the state of Colorado and for Pueblo County in particular.
It brings together the consumptive users of water, the municipalities, the utilities, and the ag community, along with the non-consumptive users, which are the boaters and the fishermen, and also the environmental people who want to see a healthy river. So it's a win-win.
My role at the Colorado Natural Heritage Program is as an ecologist and a conservation planner. We started working in southeast Colorado early 2000s. Over 50 ranchers we've been working with for over a decade now. And so I have the opportunity to work on restoration projects, work on monitoring projects, work on inventory projects.
Right here.
Yep, that's your sand drop. See, that's a good one.
We'll go pick your needle and thread.
Yeah, where is my needle and thread, Grass?
I met Renee, 5-8 years ago. Renee has impacted the future of this ranch in a number of ways. She's taught us how to evaluate our grazing plan from year to year, or week to week, like you'd say, on looking at different species. Our sand sage, I never paid attention to. Now, the sage is one of the things I look at most.
Southeast Colorado it's not one of these beautiful places like the Rocky Mountains that everybody comes to see. It's more subtle than that. You really need to look at the land, you really need to talk with the ranchers, you need to talk with the owners, and learn the secrets. Oh yeah, look at that. So that's coming back from the drought. You know, when I started working in Southeast Colorado, there was what I would call a distrust between the ranching community and the biologists. The distrust was really just a lack of communication. When's the last time the boat was running?
Oh, probably last fall my grandkids were in it.
Nice.
It'll hold you.
I like the shade.
Yes.
When we ask, how do we accomplish protection? How do we accomplish stewardship? How do we accomplish, being good stewards of the land? It requires a combination. It requires you as a landowner. It requires land trust, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, State Land Board, BLM.
But Renee, don't you think through your work you have promoted these other agencies to work with the rancher trusts you, and now he's beginning to trust some of these other entities?
I don't feel like I'm a go-between person, but I feel like I can really talk about the landscapes without the background issues of regulation.
But those agencies know you have the respect of the rancher, so they will listen to you, where they won't listen to a lone rancher.
When I think about where conservation is going in the future, it's very different than what it's been in the past.
Oh, I see a lot of changes in the management of these ranches, where it benefits the whole, not the individual.
I think conservation is more about how do we keep local people on the lands doing what they do best and provide them with the resources necessary to continue to make a living off the land, and yet we as the greater well-being, human well-being benefits from your work. So it's nice to be able to tell the grasses what they don't have any blooms on them.
Looking back after a career spent teaching and studying regions, I often marvel at what role happenstance plays. I went to Colorado College, all of 60 miles away from where I grew up in Denver. Right after that, I won a Fulbright to study economic development in Pakistan and landed in an entire different region, the Indus Basin, the Hindu Kush, the Karakorums. We went through the Khyber Pass to Kabul, which would not be desirable now. And the years I spent there, I began to realize that regions shape societies.
State of the Rockies was not only Walt's brainchild, but also his labor of love. In so many ways, he has fueled not only the original ideas, but has kept it going now for 10 very successful years.
The State of the Rockies project looks at the 8-state Rockies region as a hydrologic basin, as a geological and a geographic feature, and that's allowed us to roam throughout the region looking at critical issues that arise that we need to get out and understand what nature is telling us, what it offers, but also what we owe back to nature. In the Rockies, we are resource-based, we always have been, and we always will be. The way we use those resources changes, and that's what I try to convey to students. For 2 years, 2011-12 and 12-13, the Rockies project focused entirely on the Colorado River Basin. We had a group of explorers kayak from source to sea, about 1,700 miles, 120 days.
So we're essentially tapping this river dry, as is seen down in the Gulf of Mexico, down in the Delta, where the river no longer reaches the sea. We decided that we were going to sort of get off the fence, and we were going to start letting policymakers and letting decision makers here in the Rocky Mountain region know what the voice of the younger generation was.
We know with this generation of students that they are very interested in being hands-on, about learning and producing research that makes a difference.
So you can see behind me there's a big diversion ditch.
When they see the impact that their work has, they are even more fiercely committed.
I think Walt has a kind of adventuresome spirit that he imbues his courses with, that he shares with his students as they grow intellectually.
Trying to get some of those ranchers who are opposed to wolf populations into the mix.
I've been a student of Walt's since 2008, and I've worked with him since 2010 on the Rockies project. One of the most impactful experiences with Walt was studying ecological economics with him.
One of the striking things about Walt Hecox is what I call his staying power.
As I travel across the country and visit with alumni, Walt is always one of those names I hear about somebody, a mentor who made an important difference in the lives of our former students.
Right now I'm working in Ecuador. I'm working for the United Nations Development Program. Part of the reason that I now am so passionate about the environment comes from Walt's teachings. He taught me that we economists can care about the environment as well.
Walt sets the bar very high for his students, and they don't disappoint. And I think that's one of the reasons that the state of the Rockies and the report card has continued to improve over the last decade.
He is an example of what we're very proud of at Colorado College in terms of how engaged our professors are. And Walt Hecox stands out as one of the very best.
We live in a world that is increasingly disconnected from nature, and preservation of these open spaces provides people with a place to reestablish that connection. Palmer Land Trust has been doing conservation work for 36 years. We've protected 75,000 acres to date, wonderful historic ranches, exceptional habitat areas, public open spaces. The impact that a single conservation project can have, like Red Rock Canyon where we are today, is pretty spectacular. Hundreds of thousands of people visit this park every year. A project like Red Rock Canyon has a tremendous community impact, but it's only one small part of this much grander conservation effort that we're involved in, what we refer to as a landscape scale effort.
We used to say that we focused on preserving land, and in the last decade or so we've really changed to talking about preserving landscapes, because it's the landscapes that define the character of our communities. In 1992, Stu Dodge, working with the Hagedorn family, completed the easement on the Broken Wagon Ranch, which was the first project on the Pikes Peak Conservation Corridor, or what we call it now, between Woodland Park and Divide.
Stu Dodge and my dad were good friends. I don't know how they initially got to know each other, but Stu turned Dad on to the possibility of a conservation easement on the property to be held by, in those days, the Palmer Foundation, now the Palmer Land Trust. The view is protected forever. It's not going to be condos or high-rises or gas stations. It also has meant that we'll be able to keep the ranch in the family as a working ranch, cow-calf operation, having the cattle up here, typically from June through November.
Today, that ranch is part of a 23-mile expanse of protected lands that Palmer and its partners have been working to preserve for decades.
We're really preserving land uses and making sure the land remains available for ranching and for agriculture.
Some of the largest land conservation efforts that Palmer is involved in are on the south side of Pikes Peak. One of the ranches that we're working to protect extends from the Shelf Road Garden Park area in Phantom Canyon almost all the way up to Cripple Creek. It's a spectacular landscape. It spans 5 ecological zones, has a variety of habitat, and borders about 5-6 miles of the Gold Belt Tour scenic byway. There's a real direct link between our economic well-being and what we're protecting.
5.5 million people visit the Pikes Peak region each year. They spend about $1 billion annually. That results in 13,000 jobs in the Colorado Springs area, so the economic impact is huge.
The key thing that defines our role is that at the end of the day, when an important open space is protected, it's our deeded interest in the property, our conservation easement, that makes the guarantee to everybody who is involved that this place is going to be protected forever. Your children will be able to enjoy it the same way that you're enjoying it today.